Could you please tell us your name?
Amanda Sweet.
And could you please spell your first and last name for us?
Amanda, Amanda, Sweet, Sweet.
By whom are you employed?
I'm employed by the Metro Nashville Police Department in the crime laboratory.
And what do you do in the Metro Nashville Police Department crime laboratory?
I am the Forensic Services Division Director, which includes the crime laboratory and our crime scene investigation unit.
How long have you been employed by the Nashville Police Department?
Since 2013.
And when you first became a member of the police department, what were your duties?
I was hired to be the toxicology unit supervisor and to help start the Metro Nashville Police Department crime laboratory. So there my duties were to oversee hiring of staff, procurement of instrumentation, method validations, and things to be able to do toxicology analysis. But then in 2019, I moved into a managerial role as an assistant director, and then as the crime lab director, and most recently the forensic services division director.
And where is the crime lab located?
It's located above the Madison Police Precinct in Madison, Tennessee, northeast of Nashville.
And what types of examinations can be performed by the crime lab?
So we are considered a full-service laboratory that consists of several different forensic disciplines. We have latent fingerprints, tin print, firearms identification, drug identification, DNA testing, and toxicology testing.
Are there some things, though, that the lab does not do and
Yes.
are outsourced?
Yes, so even though we're a full-service laboratory, for example, our toxicology unit specifically does DUI testing, so driving under the influence analysis. And the best specimen for that type of testing is blood. So our panels for testing are limited to drugs that you would see in impairment cases. So anything outside of the realm of DUI testing, we will sometimes send to a private laboratory like NMS laboratories, because they can do testing on different matrices like urine that we're not capable of doing just because it's outside of our scope of testing.
In pursuant to your duties and responsibilities, are you essentially a supervisor over what comes in and what goes out of the crime lab?
Yes, so as the division director, the crime lab falls underneath me in all those disciplines. Those supervisors report to a crime lab director who ultimately reports to me. So I oversee the operations and what samples come into the laboratory, what evidence we accept, and make sure that it's within the scope of testing that we can perform.
And are there certain protocols as far as accepting evidence into the crime lab?
Yes, we have an evidence receiving unit that has their own set of standards of how evidence is received and accepted. And we also follow accreditation guidelines. Our laboratory is accredited by ANAB, so we follow a set of national guidelines on how we receive evidence, how things are documented, and how reports are issued from our laboratory.
And is that documentation retained with each specific case?
It is. We have a software called Justice Tracks, in which we image all evidence that's received. That's where we have all of our notes, all of our analytical testing results, and our reports are issued through that system so that everything is tracked and documented.
And specifically, with respect to your laboratory case number 23-001060 involving Ms. Jade Benning, have you reviewed the materials and chain of custody, everything to do with that case as far as the crime lab is concerned?
Yes, I have.
All right, this time, could she be handed exhibit number 9? It's the previously introduced. Is it Sweet, Officer Sweet?
Miss Sweet, I'm not an officer.
That's what I was going to ask. Are you a sworn officer or
I'm a civilian within the police department. All crime lab employees are civilians. Nobody are sworn in the police department. Crime laboratory. Yes.
You've just been handed our Exhibit 9, Exhibit 9 to this proceeding. Did you look at that document and see if what is depicted in those photographs, if you recognize that?
Yes, I recognize this as a blood alcohol kit that we would routinely receive in our laboratory. You can see it has the Metro Nashville Police Department property and evidence label on it, and we routinely receive these for DUI cases.
Okay. And jury's previously seen these, so I'm not going to redo that. But if you could turn to I'll put this up, the next to last, third from the last page. Alcohol. Something is coming back up hopefully here now. Again, it was previously introduced, but do you recognize that document?
Yes, I do.
And does that indicate there's an alcohol toxicology request?
So this is a form that is located in the kit that we request the officer submitting the kit fill out, that has some information regarding the case. And in this case, you can see where there are 2 blood tubes that were received with the specimen date collected and time collected. The registered nurse that collected the blood sample, and they are requesting an alcohol and drug screen on this case.
Now I'm going to go down to where it says for laboratory use only. What is that part of the document reflecting?
So the top half of the document is where the officer will fill out the form. The bottom half is once we receive it in the laboratory, the technician that receives the blood actually opens the kit up, will document the specimen the session date and time, so that's the date that she received this, into the actual toxicology unit from our evidence receiving unit. The time that she opened the kit, she is indicating that the kit is sealed, what the unique crime lab number that was assigned this kit is, her name, and what specimens were received. So in this case, there were 2 blood tubes. They were labeled 001-01, 001-02, an approximate amount of blood in those. And these were full tubes, so there were 10 milliliters of blood.
And down, at the very bottom of is that a picture of the tubes?
Yes, it is. That's a picture of the tubes that were received within that kit.
When you say received, how does that take place? From the Metropolitan National Property Room, or where it's stored? How does that get to you, and is that accounted for in your chain of custody document?
So we receive samples directly from our property and evidence storage location. An officer will bring evidence out daily to the laboratory and hand it off to our evidence receiving technicians to log it into our system and to store it in the evidence in a vault until it's ready to be analyzed by a scientist. The property room is also ran by the Metro Nashville Police Department. It's located off of Trinity Lane, and they will go around to police precincts daily and collect evidence that is submitted, or people can drop evidence off at the property room directly.
And when you say people can drop evidence off,
I'm sorry.
would it be law enforcement?
It would be law
officers?
enforcement. My apologies. Yes, it would be law enforcement officers would drop evidence off at the property room.
Just briefly show you the last photographs. Again, there is a little bit of a glare, but can you see what is depicted?
Yes. This is a copy of how the tubes are currently located in the laboratory. So the first page was how the tubes were received from the hospital with the hospital labels. This is an image of the tubes once we received it, once we put our labels on it, and how it's being stored currently.
There appears to be a little something that looks yellow. We can see on one of them. Does that have any significance?
Yes, so that is a return label from NMS Laboratories. So we kept tube 1 in-house to perform an alcohol analysis. We shipped tube 2 out to NMS to perform drug testing on this sample. So tube 2 came back to us with a return label from NMS Laboratories.
I think that's all I was going to ask about that, if you want to set it aside. But do you have your chain of custody report, a copy of it with you?
I do.
And counsel has been provided a copy of this. You referenced that one of the tubes was designated as 00101, is that correct?
Yes.
And the other was 00102?
Yes.
All right. Now, does it start off, though, as just being collective 001?
That is correct. 001 is the actual kit. It's given that number, and then any item within that kit is sub-itemized and given a unique number. And that's where the 001-01 and 001-02 come into play, the two separate tubes.
Okay, when you say kit, is that the collection box?
Yes.
Evidence box. All right. And does it indicate when and from whom that item came into the crime lab's custody?
Yes. The kit was received by the crime laboratory on February 27th, 2023 at 10:25 a.m. by Daryl Osment, and that is an officer with our property room.
And was it then logged into the crime lab?
Yes, it was received by Barbara Reed, and she is an evidence receiving technician with the crime laboratory. And she, once she received it, that's when she would image the kit, and then she would give it a unique crime lab number, and then it goes to a storage location, which is a vault within the evidence receiving unit.
As far as security, what type of security is there on items of evidence that come to you for examination?
So our crime lab has essentially 3 levels of security, the vaults being the most secure. There are other people within the police department that have access to the crime laboratory hallways, but the units are locked down specifically to crime lab employees. And the vaults are specifically locked down to people that work within that unit, myself and the crime lab director only. So it is very limited access.
Now, does the chain of custody indicate that 001-01, what happened to that tube after it was removed from the box and separated?
Yes, so those tubes, once Jessica Brooks, who works in the toxicology unit, she's a senior scientist there, she retrieved the kit from our evidence receiving unit, and that's when she took custody of it to actually open the kit, verify that it was sealed before she opened it, and to take the images that we have already referenced of the blood tubes and the form that was within the kit. And then after that, she puts it into a refrigerator that's located within the toxicology unit, also in a vault location that only is is accessible to the people in that unit, myself, and the crime lab director.
And what happened to that? Was it relabeled the 001-01 and the 001-02 at that time?
Yes, when Jessica took possession of the kit and itemized the blood tubes, at that point they received our unique crime lab label with those with that description on it.
And would it also be with your unique crime lab number?
Yes.
And what, if anything, occurred with 001-02?
It followed the same steps where she took images of the evidence and she put a crime lab label on it with our unique crime lab number and labeled that second tube 001-02. And those are also on the images that we previously referenced, where you can see the unique number on each tube.
And what, if anything, happened with that tube, the 02? Was it examined by a juror lab or referred out?
02 was the tube that was sent to NMS laboratories. 01 is the tube that remained in-house for the alcohol analysis that was performed.
Now, are you familiar with NMS labs?
I am, yes.
And how so?
We have worked with NMS labs for approximately 6 years to provide some testing for our toxicology unit. We had to use them for testing. We have to make sure that they follow the same accreditation standards that our lab does as part of our accrediting body requirements. So they are also accredited by ANAB, so we know that they follow the same set of guidelines that we would follow in testing. And we also had to get approval from the police department to send cases to NMS laboratories for testing.
And was 02 sent to the NMS labs?
Yes, it was.
And when was that done?
That was sent to NMS laboratories on March 6, 2023 at 10:45 a.m. That's when it was packaged and scanned out to NMS laboratories. And in this process, it's going to be put in a sealed kit within a sealed box. And we have a FedEx tracking label so we can see where it is in the process.
And with respect to that particular item, after it is FedExed to NMS, did it return to your possession?
Yes, it was returned to our laboratory from NMS Labs on March 30th, 2023, and we took possession of it at 3:09 p.m.
And where are those two tubes today?
Those two tubes are currently being stored in a hold refrigerator within our toxicology unit at our crime laboratory.
Were there other items submitted to the crime lab with reference to Jade Benning's case?
Yes, there were.
Yeah. Was one of those urine specimen collected by Detective Reese?
Yes.
And did it go through the same protocol as far as being brought to the lab, checked in, and given its own number?
It did.
Okay. And what was that particular item? What number was it given?
The specimen cup of urine was given item number 002.
And, pardon me, when was it received into the crime lab?
That was received on March 2nd, 2023 at 12:21 p.m. from our property room. The same officer, Daryl Osment, also brought that sample to us, and it was received by Barbara Reed, our evidence receiving technician, and then placed into an evidence freezer for storage.
So by being an evidence freezer, was the urine sample frozen?
Yes, it was stored frozen at that time.
And is that protocol
Yes.
policy? What was the progression of that item from the freezer?
So that item, the original container that the urine came in stayed within our laboratory, but we took an aliquot, a portion of it, to send to NMS laboratories. We did not want to send the entire specimen. We wanted to preserve some at our laboratory. So it was itemized as the cup of urine was 002-01, and then the aliquot taken to send to NMS laboratories is 002-01-AA.
When you said aliquot, could you spell that and tell us what that is?
So that's essentially taking a sample of it. We took a portion of the urine from the original cup so that we didn't send the entire sample out in case we needed to do additional testing in the future. So it's just a portion of it that was put in a separate vial and given a separate label with the 002-01-AA to recognize that it came from 002, but it was a separate portion taken out, and that followed its own chain of custody that was being sent to NMS laboratories so that we could track the original container as well as that sample that was taken.
Did the original container ever leave Metro Nashville Crime Lab?
The original container never left our crime laboratory. It just moved from an evidence vault into the toxicology unit for storage in a refrigerator there.
And is it still there today?
It is.
Now, with respect, though, to the sample, what happened to it, the one that was taken from the original container?
So that portion of the urine was sent to NMS laboratories on March 6th, 2023 at 10:45 a.m. That's when it was scanned to be put in the box to be sent via FedEx.
Same procedure as they discussed previously, correct?
Yes, it is.
And, pardon me, was that ultimately received back from NMS, or did they keep it?
That was received back from NMS on March 30th, 2023 at 3:09 p.m. And then it has been stored in a vault location within the toxicology unit since it was received back.
And are there photographs documenting what you just testified about with respect to the items and their receipt into the crime lab?
Yes.
All right, if I could ask this to be passed to witness and counsel as well.
This is what you look through it and see if you
Yeah, right.
recognize.
And see if they're pertaining to the urine specimen we've just been discussing.
Yes, it is.
Or should you give those back?
As those be marked as the next plaintiff exhibit and allowed to publish. 30 seconds.
Go ahead and
Oh,
make
okay.
30s.
Here's already seen one or two of these, but I'll just. And does that appear to be standard Metropolitan Police Department packaging and have the documentation?
Yes, it does. You can see that the larger label, that is our property room label, where it went there prior to being submitted to the laboratory. And then the label kind of on the right with the barcode is the crime laboratory label with unique crime laboratory number. And it's hard to see here, but it says it's 002 is the number.
And is this picture of the backside of the bag?
Yes, it is.
You've sort of seen this with a picture of the bag, of the urine container in the bag prior to it being labeled.
Yes.
And reference to barcode and the identifying information, does this also contain the crime lab number, case number?
It does. That is our crime laboratory label with our unique crime lab number. And you can see now the outer packaging was labeled as 002, but then now the sub item for the actual urine is 002-01. So that's the label that went on the actual urine.
The one that went into the freezer?
Yes.
And what is this a photograph of?
This is a photo of the aliquot or sample of urine that was taken from the original container that was going to be shipped to NMS Laboratories. So you can see it now has a crime lab label that the submission is 002-01-AA to represent that it came out of that original urine container, but that it is a separate sample so that we can track its movement specifically to NMS Laboratories and then back to our laboratory.
And the last one. Is this
That is the same urine, now with an NMS. That is NMS's barcode that we're looking at there.
And is that how it would look when it came back to you from NMS?
Yes. So once NMS receives it, they will place their own label on it, and this is routine how we receive samples back from them with their label.
Tip this back. 37. I believe you previously said when that came back, it went to the cold storage. Is that correct?
Yes, it's in a storage location within the vault within our toxicology unit.
And how, if at all, do you know that it is still there?
I, last week, went back and I visually looked at it to verify that it was in there. I also asked a evidence tech or a forensic scientist within the unit to take photos of that evidence and to show the state that it is currently in the laboratory. So on June 18th, I asked her to re-image everything in the case to show that it was located in this refrigerator number 6. But before she did that, I went back in the refrigerator and looked at the evidence to verify that it was in that location.
Is there any standard retention period for, let's say, blood that comes in for a DUI case?
For routine DUI cases, we will keep samples for 1 year, and then after that year, they will be destroyed unless we receive a hold request. But anybody, the defense counsel or the prosecution or an investigator can always send us an email requesting a sample to be held, If they think that court might be coming up, it might take longer than that 1 year. So we will routinely hold cases upon request if necessary.
And was there such a request made in this case?
Yes.
And you referenced having someone take pictures of the items that you visually saw were still there. If I
Yes.
could have this council's. If you take a look through those and see if you recognize those photos.
Yes, I do.
I believe that would be 38. I publish at least one or two of these to the. Where is the refrigerator located where these items are?
It's within the vault of the toxicology unit.
Is it in a secure part of the building?
It is. It's badge access only, and only the individuals that work within the toxicology unit, myself and the crime lab director, have badge access to that vault location.
Put up one, and this appeared to be well, you tell us, what are we seeing here?
This is with the refrigerator door open. This is the location where the case is being stored in the refrigerator.
And one thing I'm going to try to zoom in here, if I can. There in the corner, what do you see there?
So anytime that we take an image and upload it into the case file, it is an annotation is burned into the image. So this represents the case number, the technician that took the photographs, and the date that she took the photographs.
And June 18, 2026, last week.
Yes.
And does that image appear on any and every photograph of everything that's at the crime lab?
It does, because our software actually puts that in there, whoever's logged into the computer that scans the image in. So it's a timestamp that's put by our software on that image.
So if somebody scans in the picture, we know the date.
We know the date.
Show this one just for the sake of. So we see the word hold on that.
They write that on the bag just to make sure that it doesn't get destroyed.
This one we can see not only the hold. Does this also appear to be what you talked about, the tubes that are still there?
Yes, and you can see the actual crime lab number, the CL-23-001060. You can see that on the labels within that bag, within the hold bin.
Anything about the handling of evidence involving this case out of the ordinary as far as using FedEx, NMS lab, retaining the evidence? Was it handled according to your protocol?
Yes, this was handled according to our protocol. I've thoroughly reviewed our chain of custody and have seen no issues or discrepancies with our ship date, when NMS received the samples, when they shipped them, when they returned back to us. And we routinely use NMS laboratories, so we will make shipments to them almost every month, routinely. So this is a very common process for us.
And would that be true for any other items that may have come into the crime lab regarding this case and then gone out for further testing?
Yes, we also outsource cases for DNA to another laboratory, and they follow the same standard protocols.
And larger items or items, containers, do they eventually go back to the property room?
So it depends on the type of analysis requested in the unit. Toxicology cases do not go back to the property room. They stay in-house for 1 year, and if we have no hold requests, then the evidence will be destroyed after 1 year.
Those are my questions, Your Honor.
My question.
Yes, thank you.
Good afternoon, Ms. Reese.
Good afternoon.
Saw a whole bunch of pictures that just came up, and I'm not going to ask you about individual pictures, but one thing I was kind of noticing as they were coming across is we're talking a lot about labels and how things are labeled, and that seems to be a very important part of what you do and what the crime lab does. Is that right?
That's correct.
So you take a lot of care to make sure things are labeled accurately.
Yes, we do.
And there's a lot of different kinds of labels, too. Is that right?
We have, in our laboratory, our labels are pretty uniform on what we put on the case as far as a crime lab number and specific item number.
Well, let me clarify that, because that was kind of a bad question. I noticed different types of labels, like you have a label for your crime lab, right?
Yes.
And NMS Labs has their own label.
Yes.
There's sometimes tape across the top that says evidence on it. That's a kind of label, right?
That would be, I would consider that a kind of seal.
Okay,
Yes.
seal. And that's important too, right?
It is.
There was even on one of those outside bags that someone wrote in marker hold on it, right?
Yes, that was somebody in our toxicology unit.
That's a direction, but that's kind of a label too, right?
Yes.
So there's all, and I'm being a little like, big picture here, but there's all kinds of labels that help people know what to do with certain kinds of specimens, right?
Yes,
And it's important that those labels are accurate, right?
it is.
And part of your job, you're maybe not doing all the labeling, but you're kind of overseeing, making sure that everything is done in the right way, or that your lab is operating in the right way, right?
Yes.
And that's part of because you're a manager, right?
Yes.
And then, am I right, and did I understand it that in your managerial role, you're kind of like a in-between person for communications between these different entities?
I am. I'm an in-between person communicating with our police department, with other laboratories and agencies, yes.
Sure, so you work for the police department,
Yes.
in the lab, but still for the police department.
Yes.
Sometimes you communicate with the actual detectives or whoever's investigating the case.
Yes.
Right? Sometimes you communicate with NMS Labs.
Yes.
Sometimes you communicate directly with the district attorney's office.
Yes.
And as part of that, you're one of the people that helps make sure everybody knows what needs to be done at various parts of the investigation.
Yes.
So if NMS Labs needs some information on what kind of test needs to be done for what specimen, are you the person that helps kind of connect that information between agencies?
Myself or the toxicology unit supervisor specifically would probably be more involved in that in most scenarios with our DUI cases. But they are the ones responsible for what testing panel is being ordered.
So, for example, and let me know if you remember this, I think we even maybe had a call about this several months ago. There was a situation in this case where there was some testing requested and some testing not requested. Do you remember that vaguely? And I'll ask more specifically if that helps.
Yes, if you could, that would be helpful.
So do you remember there was a comforter in this case that there was some testing done?
Yes.
And some initial we don't have to talk about the reasons for this or the specific results necessarily, but like initial panels suggested that there was cocaine, fentanyl, marijuana, and amphetamines at a very kind of low level screening. Remember that?
I do remember that.
And that there was some subsequent communications about what do we want further testing on. And you were involved in those communications, right?
I was with some of the specimens. I don't know, I'm not aware of all the specimens, only what came through our laboratory and was sent. But I was involved in some of what was being tested as far as ordering the panels.
Sure. And ultimately the decisions were made, we're just going to test for cocaine and fentanyl, right?
Yes.
And there were probably reasons for that. There was a lot of communication surrounding that. You may or may not have been the person making that decision, but you're involved in the communications, right?
I was.
And those communications are really between kind of the toxicologists and maybe the DA's office and law enforcement who are investigating the case, right?
Yes.
And you are kind of involved in coordinating that.
I was.
And ultimately, you did end up being kind of present at like this final team meeting before a charging decision was made in this case, weren't you?
I was involved in a meeting to discuss some of the samples and what was ordered and things like that, yes.
And that was sort of with the detective and the district attorney's office, and you were kind of there to help explain what was done in the toxicology in this case, right?
Yes, what samples we had received, what samples had been sent out in regards to what we had in our laboratory.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would the next witness be?
Judge, the next witness would be Dr. Mithen. I do recognize the hour. If I might suggest a possibility, she could clarify the collection time for the 2 CFSRE reports.
Okay. If you're ready to call her as a witness.
I am, but
Okay.
I am also understanding of the time.
Or we'll go till we finish. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll step down the hall, we haven't taken the break that you did, so we'll take a short break and then come back with this last witness for the day.